Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you guys are having a great day. Today we are up here on top of the coaches that we built in yesterday's episode, and today I've been doing a little bit more work to naturalize the space of this car park a little bit. For a start, I have added in these nice lampposts, just a nice simple design, cobblestone wall, a bunch of dark oak fences, 2 more cobblestone walls from which we are hanging lanterns, and these are, I think, about 7 blocks tall, and the lanterns hang down on the 3rd block down from the top, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 blocks tall, and that basically means that the light level directly underneath these is 11, which is high enough for it to not start melting layers of snow. And that's not super relevant to the car park that we built here because, like I said before, I am planning on replacing these lines with some white concrete powder to make them look a little bit more like they are part of the car park themselves, and so we can use snow layers for decoration and other things. But that height is going to be kind of essential because we don't want to melt snow layers elsewhere. Like over here on the paths that I'm building leading away from the car park area, I want to have these lanterns hanging in a similar fashion so that we can at least have the effect that some of this area is lit up. At night, we can start to see a bit of a glow, but it's not going to damage the aesthetic work I've been doing to get the terrain looking nice and snowy. And as the sun sets, you will start to see that glow come into effect a little bit more, but you will also be able to see that I've been working on the terrain around the car park, using the same materials that I was using surrounding the main entrance over there, using a little bit of a combination of stone and cobblestone, some spruce leaves, some diorite that we can pile snow up around if we want to, and I really like the way this is coming together as well. If we look around the sides, you'll start to see, there are little embankments of stone here and there just to separate the car park from the terrain around it, and especially from this river over here. I wanted it to make it look like it was shored up a little bit against the river, and I like having aspects of the terrain kind of repeat like this. It kind of lends a unified theme to it, and I think once I have slept and I can fly around a little bit more, you'll be able to see that, this whole thing is looking a lot more natural than it was. Ow. Taking a small hit off the lamppost there. But if you have stuff like this around the place, it certainly looks a lot more natural than around this side where it's just built up on a large block of stone. I like having some more natural terrain around it. And even if we can suppose that that terrain has been sculpted around it by, earth movers and stuff like that, it's been actually put there manually by people to make the car park look a little bit more natural instead of just plopping it down into this giant kind of basin of stone here. I think it's nice to have some aesthetic detail around there and to make it disguised from the fact that it is just a bunch of concrete powder placed on top of some stone and dirt. All in all, just looking at this space here now, I'm really happy with it, and it's really starting to feel like something that we've built ourselves instead of just using the natural beauty of this snowy environment, which is actually quite beautiful. Now that I've spent a little bit of time here, I'm really enjoying the vibe of this place. Having the mist from the Optifine fog in the distance helps, of course, but I really like this project so far, and I hope you folks are enjoying it as well. Today we are going to move a little bit further afield from the ski resort. My initial plan was to build another mob spawner over here that we could AFK at so that I could get things like bone meal, because lately I find my supply of bone meal is running a little bit low. I don't spend too much time AFKing at my existing mob spawners, and they could also be more efficient at providing stuff. So I thought, what better place to build a mob spawner than over here? Well, in fact, there are going to be better places, and I'll tell you why. It's the weather that concerns me, because people have pointed out, and they are correct in saying that if it rains in a snow biome, it is of course going to snow, and snow layers are going to build up on the stuff I have built so far. The reason it hasn't happened yet, and the reason I'm a lot happier building a lot of this large open stuff without snowproofing it at all, putting down string or redstone dust or anything that would prevent snow from settling on these blocks, is because I sleep basically anytime it gets dark, and when I do that, the game resets the weather cycle along with the day cycle. So it's actually not rained here or snowed here the entire time I've been here, simply because I have been sleeping every single night. That also prevents mobs from spawning, which is the other thing, because it's not going to be super well lit up around here, but also it prevents it from snowing and snow covering all of the stuff that I want to remain exposed so that you can see what material is under there. However, if I spend some time AFK at a mob spawner, I'm not going to be sleeping constantly unless I have an auto clicker going and I know exactly where I'm going to be getting into a bed every single time night happens. And I'd rather not worry too much about that. So it's not really very practical for me to AFK at a mob spawner that we built at this area if I don't want snow to settle everywhere while I am away from the computer. So instead, we're going to be heading out into an area that is not connected to the ski resort, but is close enough that we're going to be able to set up an AFK mob spawner that's relatively reachable from here. And I think, seeing as this is the entrance, we should probably be heading in that direction and maybe build it over one of the lower snow plains or spruce forests around there so we can take advantage of building something up high in the sky without mountains being too close by. And this spruce forest here is pretty immense, and if I get a little bit further out in this direction, I think somewhere over here, perhaps even over the ocean would be a good place. There's an ice spikes over there, which we probably want to avoid because if we end up over there... Oh, wow. I fell through the snow there. I forget you do that occasionally. Yeah, some of the snow has generated that way, and if I do this, there we go, it all disappears again. Yeah, we probably want to avoid building too close to the ice plain spikes biome just because of the additional height in that biome, and packed ice is technically a solid block that mobs can spawn on. So we're going to be utilizing the same kind of techniques that we have used in mob spawners in the past, except this one is going to have multiple spawning platforms. It's going to be a lot more efficient because there is going to be more space for mobs to spawn when we build it up in the sky. And to do that, we're going to pillar up 128 blocks into the air so we are far enough away from any of the terrain that might spawn mobs around here, and then we'll get started building a series of platforms. Here we are, 128 blocks up in the sky at Y198, which I feel like is going to be an ample height to get ourselves started up here. What we're going to be doing is building out a platform much like the platform that we built recently at the charged creeper farm, where we had mobs spawning on a kind of diamond-shaped platform, except we're going to be building several diamond-shaped platforms stacked one on top of the other with a column in the middle full of observers and dispensers. So we need to count out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and our dispenser is going to be dispensing water from the floor in this location, and that right there is going to be the lowest of our platforms. We're actually going to be building them upwards from here. So from that central dispenser, we're going to be building arms in each direction, going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blocks out, there we go, and we're going to fill these in until it becomes the shape of a diamond. And remember, these need to be solid blocks. You can't make these out of glass or anything like that. You can make them out of slabs if you use the top half position of the slabs. Bottom half slabs will not spawn anything, but top half slabs actually will. It's a kind of common misconception that slabs never spawn anything. They do, it's just certain configurations of the slab that is able to spawn stuff. And if we place a bucket of water in the center here, like so, that should now flow out to all of the edges. Fantastic, it does, without flowing over the side anywhere. Yes, very good. Okay, and that bucket of water can now go in this dispenser where it's going to be activated using our set of observers. The next platform is going to be built 2 blocks above that, so we're going to place a couple of scaffolding, we're going to put a block up there, there we go, and we're going to start the next platform coming out from there. And some of you who've been watching this series for a while might recognize that this is also how we started out the first attempt at a creeper farm that I ever did. And the problem with that one was that the observers were not detecting the dispensers, they were detecting the water that the dispensers were putting out, and that actually led to some kind of quirky observer behavior where they were detecting the water changing state, not only just coming out of the dispenser, but also when it flowed back into the dispenser, it would slowly decrease the water level, and that was actually triggering an observer multiple times. What we are going to do instead with this design is simply turn the observers over. So instead of detecting the water block down here, they're going to be detecting the activity of the dispenser above, and they're going to be transmitting power downwards. The arrow there is facing downwards, and if we take a look underneath here, you'll see that the observer output is facing downwards. That's actually going to power this block above the dispenser, this sort of air block here, and that's actually going to allow it, if we break that now, to dispense the water. So that actually works super well. And that will work in a column vertically as well. So we can stack as many platforms as we want over the top of this, and that's going to allow all of the observers to only trigger once instead of triggering multiple times, which is what they were doing in the original creeper farm. All we need to do is make sure that the observer at the top of the chain is triggered by something that's only going to put out a single state change for the observer to detect, something like, you know, a note block being powered, for example. And these platforms are obviously quite compact. You know, there's only 2 blocks between them. We could fit a lot of platforms in between here and build height. But of course, you don't really need to create all that much spawnable space to get a decent spawn rate of mobs because of the mob cap, the sort of maximum number of mobs you can have loaded into the world at any one time. And that's, I think, around 70 something per player. It's something relatively low, but, you know, 70 mobs all at once for one player is naturally going to be quite a lot to deal with if it's being dealt with on your own. So we really don't need that much space. If you imagine the physical space required to spawn 70 mobs and then consider that it's not going to spawn a mob on every single block, we would only need maybe 5 or 6 platforms before we're approaching the optimal amount of spawnable space available inside this farm. So I think we're going to limit it to 5 platforms to begin with. You could build more, you could build less, really depends on the kind of output you want from one of these things. But maximum efficiency aside, I think it's going to provide us with plenty of mob drops. And when it's all done, the farm should look like this. It's got an observer on every platform detecting the dispenser above and powering the dispenser below. And now I need to go and get myself a few water buckets to put in those dispensers. Okay, we now have a completely dark set of platforms, or I say completely dark, it's dark up to a light level 7, which is enough to spawn mobs basically anywhere on the inside of these platforms. At least I think it is 7 on each of the sides, and yeah, it doesn't change the light level on the way down, even though it looks like those platforms should be lighter because the angle of the sun could work. In Minecraft, it doesn't work like that, alright? In Minecraft, you end up with light level 7 on the very tips of every platform. If you build out 14 blocks from the central block, basically it's, like 29 blocks across. I think that works out, yeah, 29 blocks across, and then just draw a square around it like that, and you should have no problem covering the entire platform in darkness. So now, this is the fun part, because this is where we get to see precisely how many mobs this thing spawns if I get a reasonable distance away from the platform, which I'm going to do just by removing all of that scaffolding and then flying up around it, and let's see if we get a bunch of, yep, we are getting a fair amount of mobs spawning already, including a zombie chicken jockey, which is pretty great, actually. So now I'm going to land on this platform, boop the note block with my right click, and look down here to see if we can spot all the mobs falling off the platform. Yep, there they go. Hey! Alright, well, I'm actually going to keep the water on for the time being, because the next step, of course, is to collect up all the mob drops using a series of hoppers, and we're going to have to make those at least 30 blocks below the lowest platform of the farm, because, of course, we have to account for the amount of fall damage witches can take. They need a 30 block drop in order to die from fall damage. We're going to make it 31 just to be safe. That bottom platform there was at 198, so we want to be, okay, we're at 158, that's 40 blocks below. You know what, that seems convenient enough. Oh, the chicken jockey is falling. Oh, that's so funny. I didn't realize he'd fallen off the platform, but I guess so. So we're going to set a chest up here. We're going to have a bunch of hoppers all facing into the chest, and of course, we won't need to create a full platform underneath this with hoppers, because mobs aren't going to be able to make it to, like, the center of this platform. So really, we just need to trace the outline of this and make sure that we have a couple of blocks on either side that are accounted for with hoppers, just in case the mobs happen to have a little bit of a direction to them when they fall. And now we have an enormous ring of hoppers down here. Of course, it might be a little bit more material conservative, shall we say, to have a hopper minecart system running underneath here, but I feel like I've built a lot of hopper minecart things lately, so I just felt like making a ginormous pad of hoppers. Of course, yeah, on a server or something like that, hoppers do cause a little bit of lag, so it might be a better idea to have hopper minecarts and just a couple of hoppers for them to transmit the rest of the items through into here, but still, I think it's kind of nice to have some of this stuff set up. And now, the last thing we need to do is set up our little clock up at the top here, which is going to activate this note block every now and again. And for that, we're going to use our old favourite, the Etho hopper clock, one more time. So we've got two hoppers facing into each other, a comparator taking a signal out of either side of that, and we need a block of redstone to shuttle back and forth between two sticky pistons, dot of redstone there, and we can probably, I think, just take the output like that. In fact, no, we'll do it the way we've done it before, where an observer takes the output. I feel like that's a little bit more reliable. Oh, did I just lose a comparator? I think I might have done. So now a stack of cobblestone in these hoppers is going to change that redstone block's position back and forth, which is going to trigger the observer once. Start to hear all of the water flowing out of that, and now if we head down to our chest collection area, with it being daytime, with us not loading too many caves, we might even be able to stand there and see the mobs as they drop out of the farm. I'm not sure quite how well this is going to work if we are potentially loading a few caves underneath the surface here, but hopefully once the water activates one more time, we should start to see some mobs falling down from the platforms on this farm. Let's wait for the dispensers to activate. Okay, subtitles are telling me the dispensers have activated, and here they come. We got a couple of zombies. Is that all for now? Okay, we do need to AFK quite high in that case. It's also worth noting that a farm like this is going to cast a pretty big shadow on the ground, and as you can see, there are some dark areas down here already. The sun is going down, but we are also going to have to deal with dark areas just made by the farm. I'm going to try and get roughly 32 blocks away. I'm eyeballing it slightly, but I think that's at least 24 blocks away, and that's the optimal distance that we need to be between 24 and 32 blocks so that we can spawn stuff in the farm. And I ran out of scaffolding before I got to the optimal height, but around here, yeah, there we go. We should start to see quite how many mobs we're getting out of this, and that's a whole lot, and it looks like they are all pretty much landing on the ring. There are a couple that fell through to the ground, so we might have to patch up a couple of holes in that, but that's really not too bad. I want to see if we can optimize the amount of time between dispensers pushing, because it does seem like the water is staying out for quite a while, and maybe we could do a 2-stage clock for that. Maybe set up something that, oh, you can hear the note block from here. It's actually quite resonant. Something that will kind of wait for the optimal amount of spawning time and then push the mobs off the platform for a couple of seconds, but then retract the water again so we can get a more efficient respawn cycle over there. But it looks like we are a decent distance away because mobs are spawning right on the very edge of these platforms here. We're getting a lot of creepers. Hopefully we'll see some skeletons spawning in there as well, because what I'm really after here is a decent supply of bone meal. Yeah, there we go. Lots of skeletons falling off of that now, all of them pretty much hitting the ring. Like I said, probably need to add a ring on the inside and a ring on the outside to make sure we catch absolutely everything. But this is a pretty decent farm. And as I was mentioning, the snow is starting to fall now. It's definitely coming down a little bit. I've turned my render distance back down to 16 chunks, so the chunks of the ski resort over there are well out of the way. They will not be loaded, and therefore snow layers will not be generating in that area. So I'm probably going to go AFK for a little while. If you can kind of see through the snow there, you can see that the mob platforms are really filling up with mobs, and that's great. Watch them all fall down there. Yeah, it's raining mobs. They look like somehow like Christmas ornaments falling in the snow. Well, I'm going to AFK here for a little while. We're going to maybe do a quick benchmark of this farm. I'm going to leave it running for an hour, come back and see how much we've got in that mob drop chest before the episode ends. Hey folks, welcome back. So the timer just went off, the sun is setting in the distance, and I might try and get a very quick sleep in while I'm here, just so I can skip through the night and not have to worry too much about the snow coming back. The snow did come and go a couple of times while I was AFK, and I had it up in my second monitor while I edited the rest of the video, and I noticed that for whatever reason I don't think I recorded a section where I said that we are covering the farm here in bottom half slabs to make sure that stuff doesn't spawn up there. It's just so much quicker than using full blocks as a roof, but I figured you guys probably know that by now if you've been following along with the series this whole time. Whoa, okay, yeah, I should probably carefully float down to this to see how well we've done. Moment of truth. And there it is. Okay, that's a decent amount of drops. Looks like we've had a couple of witches as well. We have over a stack and a half of bones. That's what I like to see. Plenty of gunpowder, plenty of rotten flesh and string, and it looks like we are getting a little bit more besides. So half a chest is, well, half a double chest. I guess a single chest is roughly 1,700 items, so I'd say we're close to, 1,900 items for an hour. That's not too bad. I can actually deal with that very, very nice. And yeah, having having the gunpowder over here is going to be an exceptional boon because I've been flying around a whole lot and I have to fly to and from this place via the nether several times in order to bring some supplies over on a daily basis. Even though I thought this was going to be a bit of a holiday and I'd try and make the base self-sustaining, I do need a lot of stuff that I've just got in easy supply over at the main base. So yeah, I think we're going to call this a roaring success, I think. And of course we could end up doing some decoration for this farm, but I think where this is, the location that we've got it set up, it's far enough away from anything else that I don't really feel the pressure to make this aesthetically pleasing. And to be honest, from what I understand about the mob spawning mechanics and the way the game registers like the blocks that it wants to spawn stuff on, it is probably best if we don't build anything else above this, because the game recognizes the highest block in this whole stack and isn't going to try and spawn anything. It's not going to make any spawning attempts on blocks above it if there aren't any blocks above it to begin with. That said, I did have to put a torch up here on top of the redstone clock because I've noticed in the past that the whole system here, maybe the redstone block or the observer, are solid blocks, and since they don't have anything else on them, they don't have a dot of redstone, and the redstone block can't have a torch on top of it because it's moving back and forth in this system. That will actually spawn stuff occasionally. Like, sometimes those two blocks will spawn something, and so since this isn't a light-sensitive environment, we don't have to worry about the mobs spawning up here because of all of the slabs. We can just put a torch there and call it a day. But I think what we're going to do for our last act of this episode is we're going to go back to Founder's Forge. I'm going to take all of the bone meal, convert it all into white dye, and I'm going to make myself some white concrete powder because I want to replace all of the lines of snow in the car park with some actual white concrete. I've been wanting to do that for the last little while, and I really think it's going to lend the finishing touches to the car park area before we move on. Alright, back from Founder's Forge with a pocket full of white concrete powder, a few more stacks of it stashed in the cobblestone box as well, and we're going to draw those white lines on there. Yeah, I really think that's nice. You don't need the 3D effect when these things are just meant to be literally painted onto the asphalt here, and I think, yeah, that's going to work a lot better for this whole parking lot. So I'm not going to do that entire thing on camera, but I just figured I would show you guys the difference here between the snow layers and this, and it means we can use the snow layers for more interesting and creative things. We could even pile them up here and there if we wanted to add a little bit of that snowy detail. And I took the opportunity while I was out to repair my elytra because, man, it was close to breaking. It was the most nerve-wracking flight through the nether I have had in a little while. But short though it has been, that is going to be it for this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you guys have enjoyed this look at making a slightly more efficient mob farm, and I hope it will be nice and useful in your Java survival worlds as well. Let me know if you enjoyed the episode in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like on it if you did. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye for now.